Have you ever noticed how some words have the opposite effect of what we expect? Tell a child, "Don't touch that." And like magic, their eyes light up, their little hand reaches out, and within seconds, they touch it. What's curious is that this doesn't happen only with children. Adults do it too. When we feel like someone is trying to control us, our urge to do the exact opposite grows stronger. But why? This reaction has a name and a scientific explanation: reverse psychology. And what's even more interesting is that many times, we use it without even realizing it. Whether it's a parent trying to get their kid to eat broccoli, a teacher encouraging class participation, or a team leader motivating their crew, it seems like magic, but is it ethical? In this video, we'll explore the real power of reverse psychology, why it works, how it can improve communication with children, students, and teams, and most importantly, where to draw the line between influence and manipulation. Because in the end, convincing someone to do something shouldn't be a power play, but rather an invitation to choose. Reverse psychology isn't just that classic, "bet you can't do it," or "don't even try." It's actually a strategy rooted in a very real psychological principle: when our freedom feels threatened, we naturally push back. This phenomenon is known as psychological reactance, a concept deeply studied by psychologists like Jack Brem. In other words, when someone tells us directly what to do, our brain often sees it as a loss of autonomy. And in response, we feel an almost instinctive urge to regain control, by doing the exact opposite of what we were told. This happens with kids, teens, co-workers, and even romantic partners. Reverse psychology taps into this response in favor of the communicator. Instead of giving a direct order, it subtly suggests the opposite, prompting the other person to make the desired choice on their own. The difference is subtle but powerful. It's like saying, "Maybe this isn't really for you," and letting curiosity or pride take the wheel. Still, this tool, despite being effective, needs to be used carefully. When misused, it can easily turn into a manipulative game, eroding relationships and weakening trust. Understanding the psychology behind the technique is the first step to using it wisely, and that starts with knowing why it triggers such strong reactions. Reverse psychology tends to be even more effective with people who naturally resist being told what to do. And who fits that profile better than curious children, independent-seeking teens, and adults who highly value their freedom? With these groups, direct attempts at control often backfire. With children, the reaction is almost immediate. When they hear "don't do that," their developing brain processes it as if it were the most fascinating activity ever. It's not disobedience, it's a natural drive to explore and assert their will. With teens, it takes on a new tone, pushing boundaries becomes a kind of rite of passage. Saying something is off-limits can feel like a direct challenge. Among adults, the reaction is more subtle but just as present. People who cherish their freedom of choice feel threatened when others try to decide for them. That classic, "I don't like being told what to do" feeling. And that's where reverse psychology hits the mark. By indirectly challenging or implying that something is out of reach, the communicator sparks a need in the other person to prove otherwise. This instinct to protect one's freedom is what makes reverse psychology so powerful. But it's also what makes it risky. Overusing this approach or applying it unconsciously can turn relationships into power struggles. The question isn't whether it works, it clearly does. The key is knowing when, with whom, and why it works before deciding whether it's worth using. There's a fine line between smart influence and manipulation with hidden motives. And when it comes to reverse psychology, that line is easy to cross. After all, no matter how subtle it seems, the goal is still to get someone to do what we want, without directly saying it. But what if this strategy becomes a habit, used to win arguments or control behavior? That's when reverse psychology stops being a relational or educational tool and starts becoming a form of domination. When parents, teachers, or leaders rely on it too often, they weaken open dialogue, chip away at trust, and trap others in psychological games. The result? Fragile relationships, unpredictable reactions, and often, lingering resentment. Picture a child who only eats vegetables when they're not allowed. Or an employee who only performs when mockingly challenged. It might work in the short term, but over time, it creates an unbalanced dynamic, built on provocation and uncertainty, not cooperation and clarity. That's why ethics matter. Reverse psychology should always be used with empathy and positive intent. Ask yourself, am I helping this person make a good decision, or am I just trying to control the outcome? The answer determines whether you're building a bridge or setting a trap. In the end, reverse psychology only makes sense when it respects the other person's autonomy. That's where we begin to talk about a conscious, responsible, and truly educational approach, something that goes beyond a quick result and actually transforms relationships. Using reverse psychology ethically isn't just possible, it's necessary, especially when dealing with kids, students, or teams. The key lies in the intention behind the message and the sensitivity to recognize the other person's limits. When used with empathy and purpose, this approach can spark healthy decisions, without direct confrontation. The first way to apply reverse psychology wisely is to turn provocation into encouragement. Instead of saying, "You can't do that," try something like, "That seems like a tough challenge, but maybe you'll surprise us." The difference lies in the tone and the openness to choice. It's a way of valuing the other person's potential without applying pressure. Another powerful technique is offering limited freedom. This works especially well with children. "Do you want to brush your teeth now or in 5 minutes?" Both options lead to the same outcome, but the sense of choice reduces resistance. In this case, reverse psychology isn't about saying the opposite, it's about structuring the decision in a way that supports autonomy. Teachers can also benefit from this strategy when students are feeling discouraged. Saying something like, "Maybe this task is a bit too difficult for this class," can spark a desire to prove otherwise. But it only works if there's a foundation of trust, and if the challenge is received as motivation, not humiliation. In family settings, it's effective in moments of stubbornness or tantrums. Instead of pushing back directly, a slight twist in logic can ease resistance. For example, "You're probably right, it might not be the best day to help Mom." When said with warmth, this kind of message often leads to surprise and spontaneous cooperation. At its core, conscious use of reverse psychology isn't about winning. It's about helping the other person realize they're capable, on their own. When that happens, you're not just solving a momentary issue, you're strengthening self-esteem, communication, and emotional connection. And that's what makes communication truly transformative. Reverse psychology also has a place in the corporate world, especially in leadership and team management. In environments where change is resisted or motivation is low, a strategic provocation can spark engagement, as long as it's done thoughtfully and with a deep understanding of the team. Picture a manager saying, "It might be tough for us to meet that deadline." If said casually and without a direct challenge, that statement can trigger a desire in competitive or committed employees to prove otherwise. Not because they were pressured, but because they felt inspired. It's the autonomy trigger working silently. But here's the catch: context matters. Without a solid foundation of trust, that kind of comment can sound like sarcasm or lack of faith in the team. The effect? The opposite, disengagement. That's why reverse psychology in professional settings should be used sparingly, never as a go-to tactic. Ideally, it should be combined with other empathetic leadership tools, active listening, genuine appreciation, and clear direction. In a healthy environment, a light challenge can break inertia and recharge a group's energy. In a toxic one, it becomes a trap. More than just a tool for outcomes, reverse psychology should be a lever for autonomy and ownership. When applied with respect, it tells the employee, "I believe in you," and that's far more powerful than any direct order. Let's go back to the opening scene. Someone says, "Don't touch," and the urge to touch rises like an unstoppable impulse. Now you know there's a natural human response behind that behavior, a reaction to lost freedom. And more importantly, you understand that when used with awareness, reverse psychology can become a bridge for dialogue, not a trap for control. Parents, teachers, and leaders carry a major responsibility: to guide without manipulating, to encourage without forcing, and to challenge without shaming. That's where reverse psychology finds its real value, not as a persuasion trick, but as a subtle language of trust. When you say, "It's okay if you don't want to help today," what you're really doing is leaving space for genuine cooperation to arise. Influencing with respect is the most powerful way to educate, lead, and inspire change. Because no one changes under lasting pressure, real transformation happens when a decision feels like it's truly their own. If you use this tool with ethics, empathy, and positive intent, you won't just be heard, you'll be respected. Now tell me, have you ever used reverse psychology? And did it work? Share your experience in the comments, and let's grow together.